Now let's spark this place.
Music and sports, it's all the same. Making a name for yourself to get in the game. You're going hard in the paint, you're doing your thing. Keeping the crowd entertained while growing your fame. From the streets to the league, overseas. Wherever your talent takes you for the trophies. When you come into the system, just buy all in. Go hard to the goal and put the ball in. Man, ball.
Yo, this is Trav with Trav's Mad Ballins podcast. Episode number 6. Can you believe that? But before you believe that, let me go to my co-host, the one, the only Scott, the G. Let him know something, Scott, and let him know something detailed.
Yo, Trav, what is up? It is, we're getting towards the midway break here in the NBA and stuff starting to heat up, the MVP talk, and we'll cover it all today.
Yeah, the All-Star break is coming up next month, but a lot of things have gone on since our last show. Martin Luther King Day was yesterday, Monday. A lot of teams played, in fact. But the last time we left, teams were on winning streaks, teams were busting losing streaks, and now we come here, and in just the past, not even necessarily a week, the Knicks made news when they shouldn't be making news because they're not doing anything really significant, but the moves they're making, they're doing something with that. Cam Radish joins the Knicks, and in this regard, Cam Radish is a Duke player, and you now have RJ Barrett, who's already with the Knicks, their third pick overall with the Knicks. So this is speculation now coming out. Is Zion Williamson going to join the Knicks? And if he does, how does that work out with a roster full of Knicks and other guys, including the thumbs down Julius Randle?
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Why are you going on Julius, man? Julius is finally living up to his potential. Let Julius go. But I think, Zion would be a really interesting addition. Obviously the Pelicans aren't going anywhere, and clearly not without him. But, maybe the Knicks have a chance to get him because, speaking of thumbs down, it seems like everybody's thumbs down are down on Zion now because, of his weight issues and things like that, his inability to stay healthy. I think it'd be exciting to see him there. I heard someone today talking about, he needs to really develop a mid-range game. And I think that makes a lot of sense because the most exciting thing about his game is obviously his leaping ability. He's only 6'5", I believe, but he can sky. Yeah, he can sky.
Yeah, he can get up there.
Yeah, so, even if he does control his weight with his body type, it's going to be tough to stay healthy if he keeps doing all his scoring inside. So, once he gets healthy, if he can really develop that mid-range game, I think he can really prolong his career. And a lot of people look at him versus Ja, and I heard someone saying, 10 years from now, does Zion versus Ja look like a bust? And I think it doesn't have to be that way. I think, if he develops that mid-range game, that, and he becomes a more complete player, he can stay in the league for a while. And, I would really like to see that. And because everyone has their thumbs down now, maybe the Knicks can get him on the cheap.
Yeah, speaking of those thumbs down, I forgot to mention, if you're listening to this podcast on SoundCloud or at the Apple Store where you can download it, or the Google Play, as I called it before, Google Play, go ahead and do so. So SoundCloud, Apple Store, Google Play, hit us up, download, listen to our previous episodes. You can catch this episode. And by the way, we're also simulcast on YouTube. The YouTube version is normally played the day after the podcast upload on one of those platforms. So make sure when you do go to YouTube, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up if you like this kind of content. If you don't, well, kick rocks. Either way, that's the way it goes.
Bring in the love, baby. Bring in the love.
Yeah, but we're bringing the goods. Hopefully we're bringing the goods. Only you all can decide that. But in the event that you do, give us the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so that every time we drop one of these, which is probably a minimum of once a week, you'll be the first to know and get this kind of content. Back to Zion. How can he hone his skills if he's not on the court? I mean, he's rarely on the court, and the injury bug, I figured, would be a problem for him when he was coming out of Duke, being that size and jumping that much and weighing that much, now weighing even more. I knew it would be a problem, but now he cannot hone his skills until he's back on the court. And with all of this dissension going on, with him not even practicing with the team, we mentioned last week, he's in Portland rehabilitating his knee, and that's not a good sign. And if he comes to the Knicks, does he bring these problems? If he can't survive or deal with the New Orleans media, bro, game over in New York. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's entirely possible. But let's look at the past. I mean, in the past, there's been, big parts of the media who said at Duke and who said it in New Orleans. Don't play when you're coming off that injury. Bide your time, get your money, and do things like that. And one of the things we know is that Zion Williams loves basketball. Now, the question is, is he going to be willing to do what it takes to take himself from, outstanding to great status, at least as great as he can be? And, I think I'm hoping for him. I'm pulling for him. There are obviously a lot of questions out there right now, but I think, if you take his love for the game and, you get him together with the right people with the Knicks, I think there's potential there. And normally I would think that's a crazy move. There's no chance it's happening because, Zion is so highly regarded that the Knicks would have to give up their left arm to get him. But, if you're looking at the injuries now, the number of thumbs down he's got right now, obviously there's dissension in New Orleans, maybe there's a chance.
Well, speaking about how, Zion was coming out as being a generational player, we can talk about the number 2 player from the same draft who's turning out to be that generational player. I thought he was a franchise player when I thought the Knicks had an opportunity at number 1. I was one of the few Knicks fans who did not want Zion Williamson. I wanted Ja Morant, but it didn't work out either way. We ended up at number 3. We got RJ Barrett, who's now becoming more consistent, and he's working his way up to being a pretty good player with the Knicks so far. Ja Morant with the Grizzlies, they were on an 11-game winning streak until there was no longer an 11-game winning streak. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks.
You can't win them all. And I mean, I think a lot of comparisons have been made with one of your favorite players, which is Iverson, because I heard you talking before. It was JJ Redick and somebody else, and they said the one word that comes to mind with Morant is fearlessness. And you saw that same thing with Iverson. He feared no one. He was even a smaller guy than John. He would run in there every time into the paint, and he just showed no fear. And I think the thing that Ja has going for him is in today's NBA. If you look at sustainability, I think, in the 70s or so, a guy like Zion could stay longer because there was a lot more physicality. Today, with less physicality and more three-point shooting, that speaks to, Ja Morant's ability to play a lot longer. And obviously, he's just got, that discipline to improve his game every year, and he's looked amazing so far. And it's pretty interesting that Dallas has had its own winning streak. I guess, Porzingis is back, so I guess that helps, but, how long does that last?
Well, they had their winning streak snapped 6 games. I said 9 last week, but it was 6 games they had their winning streak snapped when they beat Memphis, and Memphis ended Memphis's winning streak. But Luka Doncic, man, the double-double, the triple-doubles, when they come, they win. I mean, it should be that way, but we see with Russell Westbrook, it's not always the case. When a triple-double wins the game, Luka gets his triple-double, he wins the game. And going back to Ja a little bit, he has that dog in him, the proverbial bulldog attitude, the pit bull attitude. Dog? Check this out. Look at what he had done. The kid that came to the game with a Warriors jersey, what did he do to the kid? Come on now. I mean, he let it be known. It was a kind of good bad taste, but it shows you he's a dog. He might have made some enemies along the way, but he made a lot more fans in the Memphis area. They're going to hang on to him the same way the Philadelphia 76ers hung on to AI. And, I heard something out there, and you can tell me what you think about it. I heard a story or read a story about how Luka was on his worst day better than Ja Morant on his best day. Of course, a lot of hyperbole involved, a lot of poo-poo involved. But what are your thoughts on something like that? I mean, is this Joseph Goebbels kind of propaganda? Come on.
I mean, Doncic is exciting. I think there's some similarities there. I say Ja Morant is a lot more fun to watch just because his physicality and he's about 6'3" or so.
Yeah.
But he's got that huge wingspan. He can fly through the air.
Absolutely.
He's a little bit smoother than Doncic. We've talked about this before. I mean, Doncic gets it done. He's a winner, and he does those triple doubles. Mm-hmm. He has a pretty well-rounded game, but he's not as fluid. He's not as much fun always to watch. But if you want to win, either of these guys are going to be an amazing addition to your team, and they have been to the respective teams so far.
Yeah, and the Mavs, Luka Doncic. I mean, he's not that fast, and he's athletic. When you watch him, he is athletic. But his basketball IQ is off the charts, especially for being a 22-year-old right now. You look at what he does, and he knows the geometry of the game. He's grown up around that game. His father played pro basketball over where he's from, not Serbia. I forgot where he's from. But either way, his father
Lithuanian?
Not Lithuania. His father played basketball over there, so you can see that he was, he grew up around the game, so he knows the geometry of the game, and you can tell it on a basketball court. You don't have to be that athletic. It reminded me of Jack Del Rio, an unathletic linebacker coming out of a USC as a football player, but he knew the geometry of the football field. He gets to where he needs to go because he knows the player's going to be there. He's a studious player, so he knows where the player's going to go. He puts himself in position to make the play that the athletic guy can get there instinctively, but sometimes mess up because he doesn't know, because he's studied. But
I was just going to say the advantage I think that Doncic has, just natural advantage, is he's at least 6'7". He looks closer to 6'9" to me. He's really tall. When I initially saw him playing, and Lithuania, I think, is where he played pro ball, so that might be what I was thinking
Slovenia, of course.
Yeah, but what's that?
No, Luka was in Slovenia.
Yeah. All those former Yugoslavians get all mixed up together. But he was really impressive, and I mean, he looked like a Ja Morant type figure, but I thought he had the height of a Giannis. I thought this guy's going to come in and take over the league, but he came in smaller. But I think, and he came in young, and like you said, he was playing pro basketball at 16. Yeah. I mean, this guy has been getting it done for a while, and what's interesting is I think I saw you post something recently about Ricky Rubio. Remember the hype that surrounded Ricky Rubio when he came in? I thought it was a lot bigger than the hype.
Like Darko Milicic. You remember him and that hype?
Yeah, I thought it was a lot more than the hype that followed Luka in. But Luka has obviously turned out to be twice, 3 times the player that Ricky Rubio's ever been.
Yeah, and going back a little bit with the Ja Morant deal. Well, they lost their game to Dallas, and then they win on MLK Day. They end the Bulls' winning streak. So the Bulls, they add to the Bulls' losing streak because the Bulls now have lost 4 straight games. And ironically, they stay in first place, the number 1 seed in the East right now, even after all of those losses, because there have been other teams within range, which the Miami Heat is now at number 2. The Brooklyn Nets are now at number 3 in the number 3 seed. They've been losing, the Heat's been winning, and and it's tighter in the East right now. And the Atlanta Hawks beat the defending champions, the Milwaukee Bucks, on Martin Luther King Day, 121-114, after being down the majority of the game. The reason why I even mentioned those games, the irony, of course, I know the NBA might have thought about it, with that game being on MLK's birthday or the day they celebrated his birthday, Memphis and Atlanta. MLK, born in Atlanta, passes away in Memphis. So there was a little tie-in historically with those games.
So they were both playing on the same day?
They both played on MLK Day. And, you had Atlanta with Trae Young, who was doing his thing, of course. and they won their game. And Memphis at home on the same day won their game. So Memphis and Atlanta coming together for historical purposes and entertainment on MLK Day.
And, Atlanta taking out Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee's strong. And I think this discussion is a little bit of a preview of our discussion down the road on MVP, because somehow DeMar DeRozan is getting talked about, who is a very good player and a very good addition to the Bulls. But, and then obviously we talked about Giannis and maybe Ja in terms of the MVP, but that's a little tease for me.
Well, of all the teams doing well, I mentioned just now, the Heat, they're now a number 2 seed. They've been secretly winning games, and now they're number 2. I mean, they won their game just the other day, and they look good doing it.
Right, but I mean, let's say, what's the change? I mean, like you mentioned, Lowry's out, but Bam is back. And Bam, before he went out, he was looking better than he's ever looked before. And then you've got Jimmy Butler, who's Mr. Consistent, Mr. Discipline. What a fun game. I had a friend in South Florida who went to that night last night and said it was a great game. And I saw some of the clips from it. And, Jimmy Butler was doing Jimmy Butler things and Bam and everyone. And they were Bam, I think it was Bam or Jimmy, who cares? They were feeding Hero, and he was hitting those rainbow threes. So I think Hero kind of helped them not miss Lowry quite as much.
Yeah, exactly, because Lowry didn't play in that game, even though he was supposed to play against his former team. And Tyler Hero, of all people, he had his sophomore slump last year, and they couldn't stop writing about him down in South Florida. I mean, a lot of NBA outlets didn't stop writing about him, kind of picking at him and teasing him, calling him a bust. This day and age, if you miss 2 games or do poorly in more than 3 games, you're a bust. It doesn't matter what you do for the rest of your career. You're just a bust. But Tyler Hero, averaging over 20 points a game right now. And he's looking good doing it. He had 23 points in that game. And, he's obviously a key cog like they thought he would be as a lottery pick coming out of Kentucky. Yeah, so Tyler Hero, certainly one of the better players on the team, as he was expected to be.
Yeah, and I think they still have Duncan Robinson down there too. I mean, he can occasionally come up too, and it'll be interesting to see down the road. How consistent can Tyler Hero be? I mean, most 3-point shooters are streak shooters, and the super freaks, only the super freaks, I would argue, are not. Those are your Steph Currys and your guys like Reggie Miller. Now, Reggie Miller had that otherworldly discipline that a guy like Jimmy Butler has. He would shoot. They said that he would shoot for 3 hours before every game. And is Tyler Hero going to be that good of a player? I think it remains to be seen. He's obviously he helps out the Heat a lot, and as long as Bam stays healthy and Butler stays healthy, these guys are going to challenge in the East.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler, let's not forget how he plays and what he brings to the table. We saw a couple of years ago in the truncated season playing with COVID, the initial season of COVID, and where he left everything on the floor. No one should ever question the guy's heart. And if there's someone you needed to rely on with something on the line, it's going to be Jimmy Butler. And now he has a supporting cast that can help him get to where he wants to go, or where the team wants to go.
Absolutely. And of course, they've got Wilson's and University of Florida's Udonis Haslem. So there you go. The player coach.
Yeah, right. I knew you were going to try to slip that in there. So we'll stay in the state of Florida. Good news down in South Florida. As you get up to Disney World, things start getting a little murky. But Orlando did end their losing streak, which they've done a lot of this year, losing. But they go and beat Charlotte 116-109. This is, of course, within the past week. They've gotten back to their losing ways since. But hurrah, they got something done. So why are they so bad right now?
Well, from the sublime of Miami to the ridiculous in Orlando. And the reason they're so bad right now is I'll give you 3 names. They had 3 great players that they ditched last year. They had Vucevic, who is doing great with the Bulls now. They had Aaron Gordon, who's playing better than ever, I believe. with Denver, and then they got rid of Fournier as well, who went to the Celtics and was okay. He seems to be doing better with the Knicks.
Yeah, he's doing okay with the Knicks right now. I mean, Orlando, like I said, they're back on track right now. They've immediately gone on a 2-game losing streak, which you probably could expect. There are more to come in terms of losses when it comes down to that. And but you look at their team in this past draft, they got Jalen Suggs. He came out of Gonzaga. I think they got him to put a fire under Cole Anthony's butt, and it did for a while. And he's still pretty much the leader of that team in terms of scoring and doing a lot of the hustle plays. But I think they put more stock into Mo Bamba than they should have, because I think that he's not going to be their long-term answer. And right now, with Franz Wagner coming in, I think that he simply easily takes over for what Bamba was supposed to have brought to the table. Whether Bamba's injured all the time or whether he's just not producing the way you would want a lottery pick to produce, I mean, he's not helping his case as this team continues to drop like a brick in quicksand throughout the entire season.
Well, maybe you wouldn't have to rely on him so much if you have, speaking of someone they brought in the first round, the 6th number 1 pick, you had Jonathan Isaac out of FSU. And that guy, other than one season, he's nowhere to be found. So I think he's a big disappointment as well. And through if you go 4 seasons with him, including this year where he's played 0 games, no one knows when he's going to come back, I think you can say that so far he's been a bust.
I think Vucevic, they got rid of him because they expected Mo Bamba to do well and kind of slide into the position and do well himself, which he hasn't done. Now, I like the kid. I'm always a little bit biased towards New York players. I went down to the Magic Media Day down in 2018, and I spoke with Bamba in his rookie year. And he's a likable, affable guy. I mean, cool dude. But when it comes down to getting on the basketball court, he's just not, and I've been rooting for him ever since he's been in the league. He just has not even shown anything. I mean, he's getting blocks now, but he's injured more than he's playing, it seems. And then he's not consistent. I mean, he should have double-digit rebounds right now. And he should have close or at least double-digit 10 points. And he doesn't have. He doesn't average 10 points a game, and the rebounds aren't there. He's getting the blocks, but it's just not helping this team overall.
Did they think he would punch as much offensive weight as Vucevic did?
No, I don't think they expected that, but I think they were expecting a younger, more athletic version of those things that helps the team as a whole, because Vucevic was a double-double machine. Yeah. You know what I mean? And at least they were solid in making threats towards getting into the playoffs. I think they wanted him to kind of carry the baton like on the anchor leg of a race and, complete their job, at least being contenders and getting into the playoffs, and he hasn't done it. I don't think he's a long-term answer, and looking at the way things are going right now, it looks like that may be the case. You have young players like Wagner stepping in fact, a definite candidate for Rookie of the Year as well, along with 3 others or 4 others that you can throw into a hat and pick him up.
Well, maybe they hope that Isaac would bring some of the offensive power that they lost in Vucevic. I mean, let's call this what it is. This is a rebuild. No one expected those guys to be good. Yeah. After they got rid of the big 3 or this year. And, Jonathan Isaac he just hasn't shown up. Now, I do want to give them credit for one thing, which is Markelle Fultz. I mean, they've turned him into a player, whereas Philadelphia really screwed the pooch when they got him. I mean, I can remember when he was coming out, every source that I said the only guy who's a surefire NBA player is Markelle Fultz. That was the consensus. You know who went against that consensus? Danny Ainge and Brad Stevenson. And they said, we'll give you the first-round pick. The Sixers took it. And then someone, I can't remember who was taken after him. And then they got Jason Tatum in the 3rd spot. Markelle Fultz in Philly goes on to do nothing, to be a complete bust. They gave him up for a washing machine to Orlando. And Orlando's
detergent.
Orlando's been able to make him into a pretty good player. And, and the funny thing is, if you look at, so who really, hit the hole-in-one on that one? That was obviously, the Celtics did it. And obviously the Philly screwed the pooch. And then you also look at down the road, You got Brad Stevenson, who really just shows, what a bust that Ben Simmons is in the playoffs. Just rips their pants off in the playoffs. I think he beat him just complete domination because they made him shoot. Obviously, he can't shoot, and now he's a complete bust. So the interesting thing, the interesting dynamic to me, and Danny Ainge did a lot of things that tick me off, and but I got to say that they showed Philadelphia a thing or two, and so they get rid of Ainge, they demote Stevens, and everyone thinks, oh, this Elton Brand guy, he's a genius, and it looked like it would work, even though they screwed it on Markelle Fultz because they bring in Ben Simmons. But now that's not working, and who knows what they're going to do. Obviously, they've still got Embiid, who's the beast, but Simmons, I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to lose on that trade because they're never going to get what he's worth because who knows why.
How does that help Orlando? Question here. Orlando's not going anywhere right now. Now, you hope that they have this young core that's going to be able to come together because we know how that works in the NBA. It takes some time. And depending on where you are, where free agents may want to come, you come to Florida because no state income tax. That's one of the bigger reasons LeBron came down to Miami instead of going to New York. That was one of the reasons, not the exclusive reason, but I can understand that. But Orlando just doesn't have it right now. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some drafts. It's going to take some free agents. It's going to take some trades, but who do they have to trade that's going to be addition by subtraction? I don't know who they have right there. And playing in the East, at least right now, and it looks like for the foreseeable future, it's not going to be easy. I mean, if you just look at the seed, the top 8 seeds in the East right now, if you look at point differential, Cleveland is at 5.1. Everybody else, well, pretty much 2 and less. Chicago is 2. They're the top seed, 2. So that lets you know how competitive it is at the top. From 1 to 8, about 2 points or 2.7 points, something like that, the differential in this battle to win the East. Whereas if you go to the West, Phoenix and Golden State, surprise, surprise, both have 7.9 points of differential in which they beat up on everybody else out there. I think whoever comes out of the East is going to be battle tested and ready for action when the game is on the line, when things really count.
Yeah, I will say this. Whenever Orlando finds the answer, I want a no trade clause in that guy's contract. And not a blanket no trade clause, but just a specific one. You cannot go to the Los Angeles Lakers. You can go anywhere you want once you get tired of us in Florida and Orlando and you want to go pay some taxes somewhere else, but not to the bloody Lakers. I mean, Shaq and then Dwight Howard, yeah, I'm a little bit battle scarred from that.
Yeah, well, what they could use are a few of these MVP candidates for this MVP race. I saw a list, and it's not in any particular order, but the names on the list, definitely guys who deserve it. And of course, leading the list right now is Giannis. I mean, Giannis is playing out of this world. The defending champs are still competitive. They still have a legitimate shot to defend their title. And until someone beats them, they're still the champions. And KD, of course, he's on the list. And then Steph. Well, Steph, since he's broken the record, he hasn't been playing like you normally think Steph would play. I mean, his game kind of not mellowed out, but he's not just being astronomical Steph as he's been. And then you have Jokic, the defending MVP of the league, and Embiid, Joel Embiid. Those two are tied at the hip. They're so similar to one another in terms of their overall ability and their production. If one is going to be 1, the other is going to be 2 or 1B. If you're going to have Embiid at 1, Joker would be 1A. And then if you're going to have vice versa. And then you have DeMar DeRozan. Now the Bulls are on a losing streak right now, so he's not going to get a brunt of it. They also got guys who are hurt. I mean, Levine is out. I mean, so you have guys who have been injured, so that happens in the course of an 82-game season. Chris Paul, surprise, surprise, the elder statesman, he's what makes this team run, because we've seen in the past how Devin Booker can score a whole bunch of points and still lose. He can score 70 points and still lose. He's done that before. And then Ja Morant, where does he fall on the list? He's back in the race. after being out of the race because of injury. He's back in the race of an MVP race, being the MVP, and he's showing up. Now, can he keep it up with his young group of his young team? They're back on their winning ways. They're probably one of the hottest teams in the top 3 hottest teams in the league over the past month. So certainly there's something to be said there. LeBron James, the old of the old, still doing LeBron James things at this age? Are you kidding? 37 years old, not necessarily having to dominate, but he's doing just that, holding the fort down in LA as they try to win games. And I think Rudy Gobert, the Frenchman, he comes in.
The Stifle Tower.
He's a great player. It's unbelievable how good he really is. And it's funny how Donovan Mitchell is the greatest player to ever put on a uniform, according to Stephen A. Smith in Salt Lake City, where this guy is definitely an MVP candidate, where Donovan Mitchell is nowhere to be found. So there's a list from about 1 to 10. You can put them wherever you want. Who out of that list would you put 1, and who would be the last?
I've got Giannis at the top, and I think maybe I put DeRozan in the last position. But I would say this about Curry. If his numbers have fallen out, wouldn't you expect that now that Klay Thompson's back?
Well, Klay Thompson's
haven't fallen off, have they?
Yeah, he's not that big cog just yet. He's going to get caught up to speed. These guys are going to go back to being the Splash Brothers, kind of Splash Brothers light. Because when you've had so many knee injuries or leg injuries, period, and your game is the long game, shooting from everywhere, your legs are involved so much. And I know that it's going to be affected over the long term. You'll have a hot game here and there, but until he can do it for 82 games, and I'm not expecting him to do it on the level he was doing it before, 2 seasons ago, I mean, it's still going to require Steph to step his game up like he's always done. Let's not act like Steph is just some scrub out there. Steph is still getting it done. It's just more of a tribute to how good he really is, considering that he puts up points. If he has a 25-point night, people are looking cockeyed at the guy because he's that good. You know what I mean? When you're expecting 40, he's putting up 25, you're disappointed. That's a great disappointment if that's the only case.
Yeah, I would say with DeRozan, DeRozan's a hell of a scorer. He's a great player. He's made me so many fantasy points over the year. He's one of those guys I think I've spotted before a lot of other people, like Jimmy Butler. And I mean, he was a great scorer in Toronto, and then he was a good scorer with the Spurs before he came into the Bulls. But I don't even think he's the MVP of that team. I mean, you talked about Zach LaVine being out, but yeah, I think he's every much and maybe better a player than DeRozan. Statistically, they're in a dead tie.
Well, DeRozan is probably going to get the nod because of those memorable moments with those last-second shots. I think that has good staying power. I think people remember those things. You still remember Robert Horry. I mean, the guy probably, outside of his big game shots, you probably wouldn't even remember that he played on 2 championship teams in the beginning with one team when he was originally just Robert Horry. I think DeRozan, he would deserve it if I had to pick between the two. Staying healthy is part of the equation. He's healthy right now. So if he can maintain his health and continue his production, I'm expecting him to at least be in the mix. But right now in the clubhouse is Giannis, and he's the reason exclusively. I mean, Chris Middleton hitting 3-pointers like he was the other day has a lot to do with it. He has a supporting cast, but Giannis stands out like a sore thumb, even in front of great players. So
and Middleton's just one of those streaky shooters. He hasn't, in my opinion, he's a great player. He's an all-star, but he's not like one of these otherworldly players like Giannis, who goes out in the summer and finds another part of his game to improve. And so that, I mean, Giannis is just, I've got him on top. Obviously, statistically, he's doing well. Team-wise, they're doing well. Not as good as Chicago, but, you got Billy Donovan, there in Chicago. So when you think of the Mount Rushmore of coaches, there's Donovan.
And that's where the losses come from. That losing streak they're on right now, that's all Billy Donovan. Take credit like the Taliban for that one.
None of the wins, all the losses.
And on that note, before it gets worse with this Billy Donovan talk and maybe even the Gators jumping into the mix, we'll put a lid on this show here. The 6th episode of Yo Trav's Mad Ballin' coming right at you. Go to YouTube the day after you hear this on the podcast, and you'll be able to watch this on the video if you want to watch it. But if you do go there, subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up. It helps us, it helps the algorithm, and it spreads the wealth. Share this if you think it's worth being shared. But we do ask that you do that if you're going to watch this video. So for Scott, the G.
The G.
That's right, boy, the G. And it's not gangster, by the way.
It is gangster.
I'm Trav,
suburban gangster.
Don't listen to him. Signing off. The wannabe gangster will be back with me. Keep your ears and eyes open for that alert if you've hit the thumbs up and hit the alarm so that you can get these drops as soon as we put them out there. You know, make sure you do that for our 7th episode coming up momentarily. It's up to you to wait for it. Catch you later.